truly the best. And I say that unreservedly because he does so much more than what we see on First Take for the worldwide leader in sports. We are now suddenly Stephen A's world because we're just paying rent in his world. Stephen A. Smith, kind enough to call back into the Rich Eisen Show 1 game into the NBA Finals. Good to chat with you, Stephen A. How are you, sir?
My brother, how are you, man? How's everything going?
We are good. Everything's good here. And I was asking my guys here to kick off the show if I had told you yesterday that Jokic would have just 1 attempt through 1 quarter, 3 through a half, and 5 through 3 quarters, would that be more indicative of the Heat winning Game 1 or Jokic triple-doubling anyway? We would have probably chosen Heat win Game 1, but he triple-doubled anyway.
Not necessarily.
You know?
Not necessarily, because when he doesn't take shots, he's such a phenomenal passer. It's usually because he's setting guys up to doing their thing. There's no way on earth that they'd be trailing or losing and he would have had that minimal amount of shots. Usually when that transpires for him, it's because other guys are hitting shots and he's just letting them get their shine, because most of the time he knows it's reserved for himself.
So do we have anyone we can compare Jokic to, or we're literally watching the birth of a unicorn here, Stephen? What do we got?
I think it's the birth of a unicorn. I think when you consider him, I mean, the guy, he's a big tub of lard, can't jump onto a curb, and you can't stop him. It's just unbelievable. Too big, too strong, too mobile. Quick of foot. Footwork is exceptional. Passing ability is exceptional. Shooting touch is exceptional. You see the combination of all of those things. He's certainly not going to stop too many people defensively, even though Jimmy Butler was only 1 of 9 from the field when Jokic was guarding him last night. The bottom line is he's not known for his defense. He's known for what he delivers offensively. And when you consider his touch, his ability to shoot the ball, his ability to pass the ball, along with doing various other things, his basketball IQ is off the charts. You could call him a unicorn if you like. I don't think anybody would argue with any superlatives thrown in this direction, because he is something special to behold.
And then Murray is just as special, it appears, too, as a birth of his superstardom. And I understand, again, we're talking about a team that performed very well in the bubble and almost made the NBA Finals if it weren't for the Lakers, obviously, that year. But his 26, 10, and 6 in 44 minutes and the way he played, against the Lakers, the two-man game is lethal, Stephen.
Well, they're the best two-man game in basketball. I mean, we've looked at Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. We've looked at Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. We've looked at various others, and right now they're the best. They've certainly been the best this postseason, and you got to take into consideration the last time we saw Jamal Murray in the postseason, before he had that nasty ACL tear. The last time we saw him in the postseason, Denver Nuggets were in the conference finals in the bubble against the Los Angeles Lakers. That one they ultimately lost. But if you recall, the first 2 playoff series for the Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray was religiously dropping 40 or 50-plus point games in the postseason. So he put the world on notice how lethal he can be. I think he's an upgraded version from a guy like Klay Thompson, because he's a long-range sniper himself, except he has better ball handling skills and a better ability to create his own shot and get to the basket a bit better than the great Klay Thompson. So I think when you look at Jamal Murray from that perspective, his ability to hit pressure shots, to respond under pressurized situations, averaging 32 in the conference finals, 27.7 points per game throughout the postseason. Considering the fact that the Denver Nuggets are undefeated this postseason when he shoots 40% or better from three-point range, what can you say? I mean, the guy is just special. There's no way around it. And they are an elite team when he and Jokic are playing together, which is why you see them in this position.
Whatever hotel or whatever facility they might be in with Eric Spoelstra and the rest of his staff, what are they thinking right now? What do you think they're drawing up coming off of Game 1, needing obviously to take one in Denver, Game 2 being their best chance, it appears, right now? What do you think, Stephen A.?
Well, number one, they're in a world of trouble. That's what they're thinking. They're praying a lot because divine intervention may be necessary in all of this. That's number one. Number two, the reason is because you don't have anything on the interior. Yeah, Bam Adebayo scored 26 points and 25 shots, but a lot of them were mid-range. They're willing to forfeit that in order to key on other guys to make sure that those undrafted players, 7 to be exact, that had a lot of playing time in the postseason for Eric Spoelstra in the Miami Heat. Let's make sure there's a hand in their face, there's a body in front of them. Let's make sure we can test them to remind them they were undrafted for a reason, and there's levels to this. And that's what they've done. Gabe Vincent had a decent shooting game, shoot 50% last night, but Caleb, Martin shot 1 for 7. Max Strus shot 0 for 10. Duncan Robinson shot 1 for 6 coming off the bench. I mean, that's 2 for 23 overall. That's god-awful. And there's no way in hell that you're going to beat the Denver Nuggets if you're shooting the basketball like that, particularly when it's coming from your perimeter shooters who are all combining to average about 56 points per game in this postseason, and we're shooting pretty damn well from beyond the arc. They've got to hit perimeter shots. They don't have anything in the interior. There's no Shaq for them. There's no Tim Duncan for them. There's no Joel Embiid for them. There's nobody for them. Bam Adebayo is not somebody that's going to do something for you on the interior going up against a guy like Jokic. They've got to be able to hit perimeter shots, and you got to be like the Golden State Warriors in effect in this regard. Push the ball up the floor, and we're going to beat you with our perimeter game because we know we don't have much on the interior to offset what you're going to throw in our direction. So their only hope is to hit perimeter shots. I don't see any other way that the Miami Heat can even make this a series, let alone win the series, unless they're shooting at an elite fashion. And keep this in mind too, Rich. Mm-hmm. The Boston Celtics were beating the Miami Heat in every single category: second chance points, fast break points, all of this other stuff they were doing. Shot, their field goal percentage shooting. Miami outshot them from 3. That's how they won the series. It was pretty much the only category they had beaten Boston in, shooting threes. I don't think they can do that against Denver, but they need to try.
Well, you led me to the question I was going to ask you, and so I'll ask it, Stephen A. Smith, is wherever the Celtics are sitting right now, whether it's Tatum or Mazzulla or Brad Stevens, who announced that Mazzulla's coming back, what are they thinking after watching the Heat in Game 1, do you think?
They're sick to their stomach because they know they would have been a better matchup against Denver. You got to consider this. Gabe Vincent is relatively miniature. Jimmy Butler is your star, but he's undersized, particularly when being guarded by Aaron Gordon or Jeff Green, to a lesser degree Nikola Jokic. You look at these other role players, they're role players for a reason. You look at Bam Adebayo, he's severely undersized against Jokic himself. Now you transition to Boston. Well, Jason Tatum wouldn't be undersized. Jaylen Brown wouldn't be undersized. Derek White wouldn't be undersized. Malcolm Brogdon wouldn't be undersized. And although Al Horford and Robert Williams would be undersized against Nikola Jokic, it's not by that much. And both of them live on defense. And in Al Horford's case, he's got a set shot from the perimeter that would have pulled Nikola Jokic away from the basket, or even in Aaron Gordon, so they wouldn't have been able to reside in the paint, neutralizing and nullifying anything you were going to throw in their direction from 10 feet and in. Boston could have offset that. Miami doesn't have the personnel to do it. So Miami's only hope is to hit perimeter shots from the outside or get out of Denver with this high altitude, get to South Beach with that fresh air coming off the beach and run all day, every day, and try to exhaust the likes of Aaron Gordon or Nikola Jokic into getting into foul trouble and things of that nature. You got to try to pull off something like that in order to win this series. Again, it's a daunting task. It's highly unlikely, but it is a formula that you have available to you to at least try to give yourself some hope.
The great Stephen A. Smith, First Take, Stephen A.'s World on the ever-burgeoning ESPN Plus platform right here on The Rich Eisen Show. During our conversation, Stephen A., your ESPN colleague, mine in the, obviously, the media world, sports media world, Adrian Wojnarowski, or Woj-Bomb, it's Frank Vogel's gig in Phoenix. And I'd love to get your on-air first blush reaction to that, Stephen A.
As it pertains to Frank Vogel, he's not a bad choice for the job. He won a championship a few years ago, and more importantly, he preaches defense. And so when you preach defense and you've got a championship to show for it, I think that goes a long way. Was he the coach out there that everybody was looking at or clamoring for? Hell no. Obviously, you think about Monty Williams, that's somebody that still should have been there, but Ishbia wanted to go in a different direction. That's not his guy, and that's the way it goes. In the case of Nick Nurse, he ended up signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. Do we believe he would have been a better choice than Frank Vogel? Sure. But Frank Vogel can coach. When he was coaching in Indiana years ago, before he went to Orlando, he was considered an elite defensive mind. When he came to L.A., He certainly instituted a formula that elevated their level of play defensively. That definitely bodes well for him. So it's not a bad hire by any stretch. And when you win a championship, you definitely deserve an opportunity to come back and coach and show what your worth is. I certainly am wishing him all the best of luck. I think he deserves the opportunity, but was he the number one choice for the job? No, that was not the case.
And how lucky are the Pistons, right? Have Monty Williams go up there? I mean, what a great hire I thought that was. Obviously,
well, he's listen. He's the highest paid coach ever. Obviously, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
$78 million over 6 years. That's going to open the floodgates for the Steve Kerrs of the world and various others because of what they bring to the table. He's definitely opened up the market for coaches, and props to him for that. Hasn't won a championship, but got them to the finals a couple of years ago. Coaches defense, knows what he's doing. But the biggest reason he was hired at Detroit is because he's a leader of men, of young men. When you talk about a role model, when you talk about somebody that knows how to do his job and pretty damn well, but in the same breath really, really knows how to act and has the support of the entire coaching fraternity and beyond, considering the level of adversity that he's experienced in his life. You remember his wife passed away in that car accident years ago and stuff like that. Monty Williams has been through a lot, and a lot of people don't take into account the fact that, they have a number of kids and, that were left behind because their mother passed away. And that's been on his shoulders. So, he's had a lot on his shoulders, and the manner in which he handled his life and his quality of life just speaks volumes about his character. Detroit knows they've got a lot of young talent that needs to be led in the right direction, not just how to perform, but how to behave off the court as well. And so I think because of all of that, they took that into consideration. That's why he's the new head coach of the Detroit Pistons. That's why they've made the investment in him that they have made.
Last one for you, Stephen A. Smith. The comments from Adam Silver about Ja Morant's investigation being essentially wrapped up, finding additional subject matters that were so, I guess, one would assume, egregious that they decided to wait until the finals are over to announce a suspension for Morant out of respect for the finals and the players playing in it. Your thoughts on that?
I think Ja Morant's in some trouble. There are certain things that we can speak on, and there's certain things we can't. What we can speak on is the fact that the incidences that he has found himself in, getting into a fight with a high schooler, allegedly coming out of his house with a gun to confront the high schooler, having a friend of his in his company, and they had an issue with some Indiana Pacers personnel, and they saw some red laser dot pointing at somebody. There was another incident in a club. There was stuff in the strip club with him waving a gun. And then there's another one where he's on Instagram Live and one of his friends put him on Instagram Live. And, again, you see him waving a gun, stuff like that. Adam Silver feels betrayed. Adam Silver feels like Ja Morant looked him in the face, told him one thing and did another. And all I could say to Ja Morant is that he is very lucky that Adam Silver is the commissioner of the NBA and not the late, great David Stern. Because had it been David Stern, it wouldn't have been just an 8-game suspension the first go-round. It would have been much stiffer than that. And had it been David Stern, we might be looking at lawsuits and all of this other stuff because David Stern would have tried to turn around and suspend him for the entire season next year. That's how David Stern rolls, and I'm telling the truth about that, Rich Eisen. In the case of Adam Silver, I don't suspect he'll go that far. I don't think it'll be the entire season, of course. I don't think it'll even be half the season. I anticipate it to be 25 games, and those 25, something along those lines, to send a message to try to provide a deterrent for other players to engage in similar behavior. But there are other things, like I said, we can't speak of in terms of Ja Morant's behavior off the court. Some of the things that he finds himself engaged in with the company that he keeps, with the establishments that he visits, things of that nature. And obviously he feels compelled pretty much all the time to have a gun around him. And so that brings into question all of those things that I just mentioned that, again, I'm not at liberty to speak on, but I can tell you this. I'm from the streets of New York City, and a lot of players I know are from the streets, period. And I can tell you that people within the NBA community are not just concerned about Ja Morant playing basketball. They're concerned about whether or not he's going to be alive in 5 years. because of the environments that he finds himself around and the situations he finds himself confronted by. It's a serious matter, and it's something that I think that the NBA and everybody that knows anything about the kind of things that are going on with him find themselves concerned about.
Wow. That's a jaw dropper, Stephen A. I'm not going to lie. That.
I'm just telling you what I always tell you. I tell you the truth as I know it.
I know. Stephen A., thanks for the time. I really appreciate this again. Enjoy the rest of the finals. I look forward to seeing you on the tube. And then, of course, Stephen A. Smith Show, along with Stephen A.'s World and First Take and so much more. Thanks again, Stephen A. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Right back at you. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.